tonight. On First at 9 this Thursday, the 1st of January 2026. Welcome 2026. The world welcomes 2026 with grand celebrations. Sri Lanka to undertake historic reforms and national rebuilding in the new year, says the President. Liquidation. CEB to complete asset transfers by February 1st as restructuring moves ahead. Positive outlook. Sri Lanka's 2026 growth may top 5% if cyclone funds are used efficiently, says Central Bank Governor. Expresses confidence in debt repayments beyond 2028. Inflation. Colombo-based inflation remains steady at 2.1% in December 2025, despite price increases in the aftermath of Ditwa.
Kalin baby soap rupial 90කට. Kalin baby podi හැමෝටමයි.
This is Derana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and a very warm welcome to First at 9, and we wish you a happy and prosperous new year. You are joining us on Sri Lanka's most trusted news brand, Derana News Channel. Sri Lanka welcomed the dawn of 2026 with fireworks and public celebrations, while many Sri Lankans marked the occasion with religious observances. Around the world, countries marked the arrival of 2026, beginning with Pacific nations near the international dateline. Sri Lanka was illuminated by fireworks as citizens gathered to welcome the dawn of the year 2026. Colombo was the focal point of nationwide celebrations. Tourists also joined the festivities to mark the arrival of the new year. With the dawn of the new year, many people observed religious rites. The Chief Prelate of the Askeri chapter and Deputy Chief Prelate of the Malwatu chapter issued messages to mark the beginning of the new year.
වැටුණු රට නැවත ගොඩ ගැනීම සඳහා සෑම දෙනාම එකා වගේ සහයෝගයෙන් අපේ රට අපේ කියන හැඟීම ඇතිව ඒ රට දියුණු කර ගැනීම සඳහා කවුරුත් වාද වේද නැතුව සමගි සම්පන්නව ක්‍රියා කරනවා නම් හොඳයි කියන එක විශේෂයෙන් සඳහන් කරනවා.
සියලු නපුරුකම් දුර හැරලා සමගියෙන් සමාදානයේ එකමුතුව කටයුතු කරන්නට වග බලා ගන්න ඕනේ. ඒ තමයි අපේ මහා සංඝරත්නයේ වශයෙන්
A New Year's Mass was held at St. Lucia's Cathedral, Kotahena, under the patronage of Archbishop of Colombo, His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjit.
සතුටින් ජීවත් වෙන්න නම් සහෝදරයාට දෙවියන් වහන්සේලා එක හා සමානව ප්‍රේම කළ යුතුයි. මා මේ වසර පුරාවට ඔබ සියලු දෙනාට ප්‍රාර්ථනා කරන්නේ අන්න ඒ වගේ ගැඹුරු කැපවුණු කිතුණු ජීවිතයක්.
Religious ceremonies were also held at several other religious sites in celebration of the new year. Other countries around the world also marked the dawn of the new year. The new year first dawned in the Pacific Island nations closest to the international dateline, including Kiribati, Tonga and New Zealand. Australia followed with a large-scale fireworks display near Sydney Harbour, offering a moment of relief and unity for residents after the recent Bondi Beach attack. Several other countries across the globe also welcomed the new year with celebrations.
Roses and lionesses.
And still the European.
However, Russia and Ukraine did not hold large-scale New Year celebrations in 2026, citing ongoing security concerns.
ඔබේ සම හඳුනාගෙන ඖෂධීය ශාකසාරමේ forever face wash එකක් භාවිතා කරන්න.
President Anura Dissanayake says Sri Lanka will be undertaking the largest reform process in the nation's history in 2026, alongside the monumental task of rebuilding the country. The president made this statement while extending his wishes for the new year. Extending his wishes for the year 2026, President Anura Dissanayake says Sri Lanka is entering the new year as a nation undertaking the largest reform process in its history, alongside the enormous task of rebuilding the country. The president called on all citizens to join hands in brotherhood with unwavering determination and confidence in the reconstruction program, while fully understanding the challenges facing the nation. Meanwhile, President Dissanayake visited the Temple of the Sacred Tooth Relic in Kandy this morning to seek blessings for the new year. He engaged in conversations with devotees at the temple. The president subsequently visited the Malwatu Mahaviharaya, where he called on the chief prelate of the Malwatu chapter, Venerable Tibbatuave Sri Sumangala Mahathera, and the deputy chief prelate, Venerable Dimul Kumbure Vimala Dhammathera. President Dissanayake also visited the Askeri Mahaviharaya, meeting the chief prelate of the Askeri chapter, Venerable Varkagoda Jnanaratana Mahathera, and deputy chief prelate, Venerable Narampanave Anandathera. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Dr. Harini Amarasuriya, in her New Year message, invites the public to turn the challenges faced in the past year into strength and step into 2026 with renewed energy and hope. The Prime Minister says 2025 can be regarded as a year in which many decisive forward steps were taken as a people-oriented government. Meanwhile, opposition leader Sajith Premadasa, in his New Year message, emphasises that the motherland should be uplifted through collective effort in order to achieve victory. Sarvajana Bale leader MP Dilith Jayavira sincerely wishes that the aspirations of the nation are fulfilled in the new year 2026. Central Bank Governor Dr. Nandalal Veerasinghe says Sri Lanka's economic growth in 2026 could exceed 5% if cyclone reconstruction funds are used efficiently. He made this remark while joining our current affairs program at Hyde Park with Indivari Amuwatta. Governor Veerasinghe also added that while rising demand may cause some inflationary pressure, Sri Lanka's annual debt servicing of around $4 billion remains manageable given higher foreign reserves.
Before this cyclone, we had expectation from our side of central bank. Next several years, we have a potential to grow at least around 4 to 5%. If the government going to spend money that was allocated for rebuilding, reconstruction and recovery and compensation for all these activities, that will create additional economic activities during the year. Which means in terms of economic growth, it could even be higher than the 4 to 5%. But my personal opinion is that because of the reconstruction and rebuilding efforts, if those are spent properly, efficiently within a given periods, economic growth could be even higher than 5%. Excess demand could create kind of a price impact also. That is going to create excess demand. Prices of those materials can also go up. That can reflect in the inflation. Our expectation from our point of view, inflation was going to reach around 5%. That's our target. Somewhere in third quarter of 2026. Probably we might reach that a little earlier than what we thought because of the higher demand. The third factor that could have impact on the foreign exchange situation. So to offset that, we need to ensure that we also earn a little bit more foreign exchange through exports, remittances and tourism, as well as if the government can mobilize some more foreign exchange in terms of loans and grants to support these recovery activities, that can offset and balance the situation.
Governor, how would you assess the resilience of the country's economy as we move forward?
Only way to prepare for this kind of events is to keep buffers ready during this period. Government earned a lot more revenue than what was expected to the last year, and they built a buffer of 1 trillion rupees. So that can be used now to recover and spend this amount, at least 500 billion out of the 1 trillion buffer can be used to support the economy for recovery efforts. We were better prepared in terms of buffers we had. That's why the impact could be minimal. That's why it's important for us to keep building these buffers going forward in all the areas.
Are we on track as planned, or has there been a deterrence?
We are moving in the same direction. I don't see a deviation from all these prudent macro policies and also structural reforms. I don't see that's changing.
Just recently we saw the approval of about $206 million of rapid financing, an instrument to help Sri Lanka. So how is this going to really change the face of the IMF program?
That money come in without any conditions attached. The completion of fifth review was postponed because when the fifth review was about to complete on the 15th of December, this happened. So as a result, then government had to change their plan for 2026 because of this event. Now the requirements had been changed. As a result, this also will have to be revised. There's no time for fifth review to be completed to have a proper assessment, have a proper approval from the parliament to spend that for next year. That's why it was postponed to early. Next step would be to complete the fifth review based on the new budget for 2026, and that process will take place early next week. Then we'll go back to the normal cycle. Each and every review, there are negotiations taking place, there are reviews taking place, there are amendments and changes taking place. I mean, there is a possibility of review and renegotiate.
What kind of outlook do you see here in terms of debt repayment? We've heard many international economists also calling for an immediate halt external debt repayments, warning that continued payments could push the country back into a financial crisis. Are you concerned?
This is completely a bad idea. With this cyclone impact, it has no impact on debt sustainability analysis. If there's going to raise additional debt as a result of this thing, then obviously there could be even significant marginal impact on the debt sustainability analysis. This year, government made about $4 billion worth of foreign currency debt service payments. In next several years, debt service payments are going to be around 3 to 3.5, maximum 4 billion until 2032. That won't be changed. So what is the reason for us to justify for us to ask for another restructuring if DSA is not going to be affected?
I want to know whether we are in a comfortable space to manage our debt.
Up to now, almost 90% completed. I would expect soon our rating will go back to B grade. And our debt service obligation currently for next 10 years is around annual basis 2.75, 3 billion, 3.25. Even after starting to pay small capital payments from 28 onwards, it will be 4 billion or 4.2 billion maximum annual basis. If we build resources up to 10 billion or 10, 12, 13 billion, for us to service annual 4, 5 billion is not a situation, not a difficult situation, not a situation.
A special 25-member task force has been appointed to lead the Rebuilding Sri Lanka initiative through a Gazette Extraordinary issued by President Anura Dissanayake. Meanwhile, Minister of Transport, Highways and Urban Development Bimal Ratnayaka says that 200 billion rupees have been allocated for road development projects in 2026, including the reconstruction of damaged roads and the construction of new roads.
A Gazette Extraordinary has been issued by President Anura Dissanayake, establishing a presidential task force for the Rebuilding Sri Lanka initiative. Issuing the Gazette, the President asserts that there is an immediate and urgent need to mobilize a high-level and coordinated national recovery mechanism to respond to post-disaster rehabilitation and recovery efforts launched in the aftermath of the devastation caused by Cyclone Ditwa. The task force has been entrusted with providing strategic leadership, coordination, a unified approach towards and oversight of all post-disaster rehabilitation, recovery and reconstruction matters. The 25-member task force, led by Prime Minister Dr. Harini Amarasuriya, comprises ministers, senior officials of state administration and civil representatives. Meanwhile, construction of the access road to the Pahalatambavita village in Hemmatagama commenced today under the patronage of Minister of Transport, Highways and Urban Development Bimal Ratnayaka. 71.8 million rupees have been allocated for the project.
Today marks a very special occasion. Construction work on road projects valued at over 5.27 billion rupees commences today. Through prudent financial management, the government has saved public funds, enabling the allocation of 200 billion rupees for road development. These funds will be utilized for the reconstruction of damaged roads as well as the construction of new roads.
In the meantime, Sri Lanka Cricket has decided to dedicate the upcoming Pakistan tour of Sri Lanka to promoting the government's Rebuilding Sri Lanka program. Profit generated through the tour will be donated to the Rebuilding Sri Lanka Fund, while the Visit Sri Lanka tourism campaign will also be promoted at match venues.
The Ceylon Electricity Board has been notified to complete before the 1st of February all asset transfers pursuant to the restructuring plan aimed at liquidating the board and vesting its responsibilities in 6 separate entities. CEB employees have been transferred to the new entities, while over 2,000 employees unwilling to transfer have opted for voluntary retirement.
The Ministry of Energy has instructed the General Manager of the Ceylon Electricity Board to complete the transfer of all CEB assets to the 6 entities established under the restructuring process before February 1st. Under the restructuring plan, CEB operations will be carried out through 6 separate entities, with measures already underway to systematically transfer all assets belonging to the board. CEB employees have been assigned to the newly formed entities, while those unwilling to transfer have been given the option of voluntary retirement. Accordingly, 2,172 employees have applied for voluntary retirement. The Ministry of Energy has informed the CEB to ensure full compensation for all employees opting for voluntary retirement within the first week of February. Upon completion of the restructuring process, the Ceylon Electricity Board will be liquidated, with all operations continuing under the 6 newly established entities.
Several parties are alleging that the Minister of Education, the Education Ministry and the National Institute of Education should be held accountable for the reference to an inappropriate website in the new Grade 6 English language module. Meanwhile, several complaints were filed with the Bribery Commission requesting an investigation into the financial loss incurred by the government due to the printing of the module.
The newly printed Grade 6 English module, compiled by the National Institute of Education, sparked controversy over a reference to an inappropriate website. Yesterday, Education Secretary Nalaka Kaluava filed a complaint with the CID over the issue. Various parties emphasized that both the Education Ministry and the National Institute of Education should be held accountable for the oversight. Previously, the panel of authors were accountable for the content of textbooks. Now, that national responsibility no longer exists. What they do is to pay various parties to compile the textbooks. There is no one to take responsibility for the content. The culprit must be identified. The Education Secretary can do that himself. He does not need to go to the CID. This has become a joke.
They cannot take credit when things go well and shift the burden onto someone else when mistakes are made. From day one, we stated that these individuals are not capable of handling this. The ministry, as usual, is trying to avoid accountability. They shift the blame from themselves to the author of the module. Everyone, including the Education Secretary and the Minister, must take responsibility in this issue. If they have any sense of shame, both the Secretary and the Minister should resign in favour of better qualified individuals. We heard the leader of the House, who should be one of the most responsible government ministers, stating in Parliament that once a child turns 16, children could and should be provided 5,000 rupees and sent somewhere to fulfill their sexual needs. This minister even claimed that if he could, he would take measures to facilitate this in future. Now, children do not have to wait until they turn 16. They are being groomed and exposed to inappropriate material from age 12 in the 6th grade. Everyone must understand the extent of the damage the new education reforms can cause to the country's culture and youth.
Several parties lodged complaints with the Bribery Commission today, alleging that the government incurred a loss by printing the module with the reference to the inappropriate website. Subsequently, a spokesperson for the Ministry of Education stated that the Director General of the National Institute of Education, Professor Manjula Vithanapatirana, has decided to temporarily step down from the position until the conclusion of the inquiry into the controversial Grade 6 English module.
And now here's a look at perspectives shared within the political sphere on the controversial Grade 6 English module.
When the white paper on education was presented, it was primarily the JVP that led street protest against them. At that time, education experts and teachers associations were given the opportunity to express their views on proposed reforms. However, the current education reforms have drawn widespread opposition. Several groups have objected to the Grade 6 English language module, stating that it contains inappropriate references. Is this truly the intention of the government when it assumed power?
Children should not be exposed to the LGBTQ ideology. While the freedom of the LGBTQ community should not be violated, our party strongly opposes the legalization and promotion of such ideas among school children. Such practices are not even adopted in countries like England.
The Prime Minister and a group aligned with her are attempting to undermine the country's cultural values through these reforms. It is now claimed that the websites referenced in the module have disappeared after the material was printed and distributed. Restricting websites after distribution serves no purpose. A proper investigation must be conducted. The Secretary to the Ministry of Education has lodged a complaint with the CID. Who is behind this? Was this done by the Prime Minister without the Secretary's knowledge or by someone else with the Prime Minister's awareness? They claim conspirators are responsible. Who are these conspirators within the Ministry of Education? Ultimately, the government is responsible. The appropriate course of action is for the Education Minister to resign. Children's education must not be shaped by fantasies of politicians. If the government claims that inappropriate content was included by mistake, then both the government and the Education Minister must resign. I have spoken openly on these matters. However, we do not engage children under the age of 18 in such discussions. The government must understand what is appropriate and inappropriate to teach children. The Education Minister and the government must be held accountable. When something positive happens, the government takes credit. When something goes wrong, the blame is shifted to officials. In the end, I am certain that an official involved printing the module will be held responsible.
The Manusat Derana relief operation continues to provide aid to families affected by the recent weather-induced disaster. Venerable Karadatiane Gunaratana Thera, chairman of the Mahakaruna Buddhist Association of the Lanka Temple in Singapore, joined hands with Manusat Derana to deliver school supplies to affected children in the Badula district. School supplies for 600 children from 3 schools were donated to Migahakula National School in Mahayangana. Subsequently, more supplies were brought to Mahayangana Rajamahawihara for distribution to a further 600 affected children. Chief Incumbent of Mahayangana Rajamahawihara, Venerable Dr. Urula Vatte Dhammasiddhi Sri Attadasi Dhammarakkita Thera, along with indigenous leader Uruvarige Vandilatto, participated in the event. Meanwhile, in celebration of the new year, today, a program to distribute 5,000 saplings under the theme Araliya Harita Mahubima with the participation of the Araliya Group and Manusat Derana took place. During the event, school supplies were provided to children. Welcome back to First at 9. Colombo-based headline inflation remained unchanged at 2.1% in December 2025, despite a substantial month-on-month increase in prices due to Cyclone Detwa. Year-on-year food inflation remained unchanged at 3% in December compared to the previous month, whereas non-food inflation accelerated to 1.8% in December from 1.7% in November. On a month-on-month basis, however, the Colombo Consumer Price Index recorded a notable increase of 1.26% in December, with the food category contributing 1.25 percentage points, while the non-food category contributed marginally by 0.01 percentage points. Core inflation, meanwhile, accelerated to 2.7% in December from 2.4% in November. The central bank projects a gradual acceleration of inflation towards the 5% target in the period ahead, with the support of appropriate policies. In November 2025, Sri Lanka's external sector shifted to a monthly current account surplus, with the cumulative surplus from January to November reaching $1.67 billion. The trade deficit widened as imports exceeded $1.77 billion, mainly due to a sharp rise in vehicle imports totaling $281 million for the month and $1.74 billion for the year so far. Services inflows were recorded at $6.3 billion, while tourism earnings reached $252 million, showing moderate growth despite strong visitor arrivals. Workers' remittances maintained strong momentum, up 27% year-on-year in the first 11 months, rising to $673 million by November 2025. Official reserves remained stable at $6 billion, supported by the People's Bank of China swap line. The Sri Lankan rupee depreciated by 5.6% against the US dollar in 2025, while falling 16.3% against the euro and 12% against the British pound. This marks a reversal from the previous 2 years, during which the rupee recorded notable gains. With that, here's a look at today's exchange rates. That's all for tonight from First at 9. For the latest developments around the clock, stay in touch with Other Derana News Channel, the Sri Lankan news brand of international excellence. Thank you for joining. Have a great night and a happy and prosperous New Year.
From across the nation and around the world, this is Sri Lanka's #1 news source, Ada Derana.